Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Pan, and I am the Artistic Director of Collaborative Arts Institute of Chicago and one of the regular hosts of Heard Over the Piano, CAI's online discussion series about all things art song. As always, if you have any technical issues, please drop those in the comments and we will do our best to address those immediately. The magic of live Zoom. And also, if you have any questions for tonight's guests, please also pop those into the comments and I'll make sure that they get asked of our guests. Today's guests are CAIC co-founder and director of education, Shannon McGinnis, and CAIC vocal chamber music fellow, mezzo-soprano, Anna Lorenzo. In case you aren't familiar with Anna's work yet, Anna has appeared in performance with the Lincoln Center Theater, Chicago Opera Theater, Fort Worth Opera, and the Center for Contemporary Opera. So if both of you will join me, it'd be fantastic. Hi.
Hello.
How are you both?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm hanging in.
Good to see you.
So I had the luxury of watching you both film an exquisite recital that we're going to air next week for our Spring Leader Lounge. And I'm so excited to kind of have a conversation with both of you today about the entire experience. First of all, did you have fun on Sunday?
Oh my gosh, yes. It was a thrill. There were definitely nerves the first time creating a real collaborative live full experience for the first time in, over a year at this point. So for me, there were a lot of jitters, but all good jitters. So
Shannon?
I loved it. It was great. This is the first time we filmed in my home, and it was the first time we had people in my home for over a year, right? So I had kind of some nerves around that as well, but was so happy to be able to have people at home and to be able to make music in my home, which I've been missing for quite a while. It was a real treat.
Your home is a really special place to make music, and we are so grateful to you and Michael for opening your home to us to film this recital. It's kind of an extraordinary thing, right? Because we always say the art of the vocal recital was born in people's living rooms, and here we were in your living room. And through the magic of technology, we're going to get to bring your living room to everybody, which I think is kind of cool.
I'm excited to see how it all turns out. Having such wonderful sound engineers and videographers who really were thinking about the entire look and sound of the recital was really exciting. So I can't wait to see the footage.
It looked really great on the tiny screens on the cameras. So I'm excited to see what they stitch together. So let's back up just a little bit. And Shannon, let's start with you. I wonder if you could just tell us about the Vocal Chamber Music Fellowship.
Sure, absolutely. I would describe our Vocal Chamber Music Fellowship as CAIC's sort of flagship educational program. We started the fellowship, I think, something like 6 years ago. We were approached by the members of a vocal quartet, who many of you are probably familiar with, the members of what is now called Fourth Coast Ensemble. The quartet at that time consisted of a few young artists with whom I had worked at Roosevelt University at the Chicago College of Performing Arts. And they approached CAIC about the possibility of partnering together in some way. They were really trying to get their ensemble off the ground and needed still a little more musical support and some support in terms of entrepreneurial prowess. And so we partnered with them and worked with them for 2 years and found it to be a really extraordinarily successful partnership. They were wonderful, dedicated volunteers for all of our events. Worked out very well. 2 years after that, we invited the members of a young vocal trio, two singers and a pianist, called Artful Song. They also spent 2 years with us in a similar capacity. And then when we had the opportunity, I've worked with Anna independently for a number of years in a variety of capacities. And when we had an opening this year, I thought, Anna and I had talked a lot about some projects we wanted to do together. I knew of some things that she was working on her own and thought CAIC could really bring a lot of support to what she was doing. And she's certainly an artist that we all agreed we wanted to get behind and support as she kind of makes things things happen. And it's been a really, really wonderful experience. So Anna and I have been coaching together fairly regularly since the fall. And she's brought some ideas to us about some upcoming projects she'd like to do. And we're just here to kind of support her as she kind of figures things out. It's been really great.
So, I mean, was there something for you, Shannon, about kind of having this idea of an extended period over an entire season that kind of enticed you to this developing this program for us? And I mean,
yeah, that's a really good way of saying that. You know, often in my role as a vocal coach, particularly as I'm working in the freelance sector, I might see singers, you know, now and again, with varying degrees of consistency depending on work schedules, depending on when they're off doing other projects elsewhere. And the idea of having a consistent interaction with young artists was really attractive to me for a variety of reasons. One, I think that's the best way to be learning, right? To be working with someone consistently with some degree of regularity. And it's also exciting for me to be able to kind of have my hands on a young artist's growth over the course of several weeks and months. So yeah, I think that's really what the impetus for the fellowship was, that we could have that level of consistency. I feel for young artists who leave their degree programs or leave their more formal training young artist programs and are suddenly out in the world expected to make things happen, and then some of them can lose a little bit of that stability and that kind of consistent support that I think they need. So I'm happy that we're able to provide that for some artists.
it's an exciting vision. I mean, when you suggested it, I remember just thinking, this is so cool. And it's amazing to see that it's grown like this over the past 7 years. Wow, that's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun. So
it does.
Anna, I mean, what was the draw for you to be a part of this program?
Yeah, I think my interest comes from a couple different angles. The first being the idea of adding art song as a real part of my portfolio career, as it were. And that part of the career has always seemed a little vague to me. You know, you see some of these larger operatic names who do art song recitals here and there at various companies, but I wasn't really sure how to build it in intentionally as part of my music making, and something that I could sort of make a name for myself in. There's not really that level of, no one can really tell you how to do that. So when I saw CAIC and knew about the fellowship, and knowing the work that you all do and having worked with Shannon on a one-on-one basis, it just seemed like a perfect place to kind of incubate that part of my career, and learn from Nicholas Hutchinson, and then Shannon, you all bring such a different experience in this art song world. So there's something a little bit different that I can learn from all three of you as professionals and as colleagues. And I think, yeah, that was my draw. And it's been such an exciting time to really develop, and it's got a lot of ideas percolating for me, even more than the ones that I came with initially.
It's so interesting. When I was at the beginning of, finishing up when I was in a young artist program in Houston, I remember a colleague of mine who, she was well into her career, and I remember mentioning her over coffee one day, like, oh, I'm so excited I really want to do recitals. And, she wasn't somebody who did a ton of them, even though she was having this, this giant career. She was living in Munich and singing all over the world. And she said something funny to me. She said, you just have to do them, because it is a very different skill set. And if you don't kind of just grab the bull by the horns and sort of do them no matter what, and always make them a part of what you're doing, it's hard to kind of reorient yourself further along in order to develop this whole new skill set in terms of performance and programming and, developing an independent artistic mindset. So, I mean, good on you for taking the initiative and kind of, finding an opportunity. I mean, good on us for providing it, I guess. But, it's wonderful that you see that and you're taking advantage of that. I really applaud that. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Well, it's been a joy. And like I said, I mean, you mentioned a couple of the areas that I have found myself growing in. Programming. Oh my goodness. I mean, I don't know if you've talked about that on one of these, but I mean, there could be a whole series on just on programming, and that world has really been open to me through my time in the Vocal Chamber Music Fellowship so far.
Well, so speaking of that, can we talk about your program? I mean, we'll come back to more fellowship questions, I'm sure, but since we're talking about programming, let's talk about your program that you've programmed for next week.
Sure. So it's been a very collaborative program between Shannon and myself. It actually started as this idea of French female composers. It was this idea of les femmes, and bringing some of that repertoire to the forefront in a lot of different ways. And Shannon and I had this conversation. I was sitting on my porch last May, I think it was, and I said, I have this idea. I'm just not quite sure how it all fits together. And we talked a lot about diagramming. She gave me some books to read, talking about how to make a narrative, not feeling like I had to come in and put a narrative on top of this, but what was the music that I was drawn to? What was the story that it was telling? And really living in that and allowing it to develop. So it evolved several different times, but the program we ended up with, we have titled The Unknown Island. And I think what it does is it really invites listeners to go on a journey with us. It is all in French music, but with some, not traditionally French composers. Kurt Weill, we did a set of his French songs. We did a set called Songs of Spain of Pauline Viardot and Cécile Chaminade. They are songs that have a very Spanish flair to them. And we programmed Berlioz' Les Nuits d'été, a piece that's one that I'm growing with, learning and loving, and have spent some time with already. And then Duparc's L'Invitation au Voyage. So the program, I think I stumbled a bit there, but Shannon, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit further to how we kind of continued letting this program bloom.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that conversation with Anna about a year or so ago about French women composers, and really loving that idea. And as we were thinking, I don't know, as the world continued to develop during COVID times, and we were thinking about all the challenges that we all face, I knew that Anna had been working very diligently and already had a big kind of project in the works with Les Nuits d'été. And I said to Anna at that time, I was like, well, why burden yourself with learning a completely new program? This is a wonderful journey, the Berlioz, and it really speaks to some things that I think Anna had mentioned that were important to her, and also important to me during this ever so challenging time. The idea of there being something on the other side to look forward to, despite the intensely challenging circumstances we're living in. And so I think together we talked a lot about the arc of that piece as a whole, really forming the centerpiece around which we could build a program. One of the things about our leader lounges is that these are not long recitals. These are not 90-minute or 2-hour affairs. These are, 50 to 60 minutes. And so the idea of having a nice, compact, yet complete program, I think really appealed to us both. So using the Berlioz as our starting point, and then of course wanting to feature and showcase some women composers, and the idea of these composers writing in a Spanish style, the idea of exoticism, right, also really married itself well already with the Berlioz, and I think those 4 songs just create a really beautiful, kind of fun, enjoyable group. And Anna sounds like $1 million singing them. Lots of fun, flashy coloratura, and just a really great sense of style. And then Anna had a real specific interest in exploring the songs of Kurt Weill too. And I don't know if you want to talk about your kind of fascination with Kurt Weill, Anna, but you chose such a beautiful group of his songs too. So why don't you share some of that with us?
Sure. Kurt Weill is actually a composer that I did on my junior recital in college. It was a fun little set. I did some of his English pieces. But I think these pieces bring such a unique character to them. You know, they were written sometimes for cabaret artists. So there is this stylistic quality to them that is both deeply entrenched in the classical world, but also has a very theatrical nature to them that I find really interesting to explore from again, a classical rooted performance. But when we decided on this program about a journey, I thought a little bit about some of the personal journeys that we've all been going through during this time, and each of those the pieces that I chose has a micro journey within the piece, but at the same time, the set of the three together also takes us on a journey. It's Complainte de la Seine, Je ne t'aime pas, and Yukali. And my goodness, it was, how do I say this? Those three pieces feel like a complete meal, and yet they leave you wanting more on the other side of them. So, it was such an exciting exploration, and took us places I think we didn't necessarily know we were going to when we started those pieces. So Kurt Weill, I love him.
Sounds like you guys went on a journey both through the program and also developing the program. That's really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think one of the most enjoyable aspects of working together was that we've had a bit of time to work, which we don't always have in life. And I remember coaching or rehearsals where we just spent a lot of time talking about what we felt like the journey needed to be. I remember that one rehearsal in Mark's Hall over at CCPA, Anna, where I think we just talked the whole time and then kind of left both of us kind of with a lot of work we felt we needed to do on our own, just kind of grapple with what that conversation had been. And I really found that quite inspiring. In our normal life, we don't always have time for that, sadly, you know? Just to kind of sit and talk and share ideas. And that was a really meaningful part of this process for me, for sure.
And just to go further with that, I think I learned a great deal during this process about the kind of work that's necessary in addition to the vocal work and the musical work, what's on the page, but the work that's involved as an artist, as a human, to take these stories, these notes, these rhythms, and really do them justice, but also bringing something unique and different. That for me was a challenge, because as an artist, I think as you're coming up in your career, there's this tendency to want to do things right. You know, let's check the box. Okay, you know, I can hold the note for this long, and there's a decrescendo, and there's, you know, you're given so many different markings that you want to do right, that you're not encouraged sometimes to explore what you as an artist bring to that particular song. So that work was something I didn't quite fully understand. And so it was both a challenge and an exciting journey to really dig deeper as an artist. And Shannon was so collaborative and inspiring during that process. And I was very thankful to be walking down this road with her for this recital.
So, I mean, is that part of your journey here as you're trying to explore? I mean, is that something you've noticed about the difference? I mean, in terms of opera training versus incorporating this into your wheelhouse? There's no conductor, there's no director. It's really just you and your recital partner. And I mean, how has that experience been for you? And I mean, did you have a lot of experience before with that, or, you know?
You know, I had some experience. I put together some recital projects of my own and presented them, but I think the level, the bar was raised in putting together this recital, and in working with CAIC in this way. I was able to experience the artistry of the other artists who you've presented in your programming this year in a different way. And that set off some internal fire for me to really push myself forward in that way, and saying, okay, so what is it? What is it that these artists are bringing to the table? What is it that makes their music so appealing? What's that thing that they're doing that's drawing me in on the edge of my seat, that makes me want to hear, that makes me have no idea what's going to happen next, and yet be 100% sure that I'm very safe in their musical hands, no matter the choice they make. So yes, this has been a big part of my journey. It's challenging, but I like a challenge, and I think that's what our musical world needs more than ever, is individuals, is artists, is risk takers, and people who show up as their full self, not just, oh, I'm showing up as a singer. No, I'm showing up as a human who happens to sing, and what I bring to you today is going to offer you something that you can't get anywhere else. Boy, it's a lot of work, but it's fun work.
And on that note, I guess we're done. That was great. That was beautifully said, Anna. Sorry, that really was. It was perfectly said. I remember one of our early rehearsals, Anna just kind of threw up her hands at one point. She said, "I think I just need a conductor. I need a conductor to like show me." And we kind of had a little back and forth about that. You know, one of the things that I admire about Anna, and one of the reasons I wanted her to join us all, is that she has incredible leadership skills and terrific executive and administrative skills as well. And she has a really strong point of view, and she's really good at articulating it. The challenge is, how do we do what we want to do when we've been kind of conditioned to silence that voice, right? And instead just be the voice for someone else. And so we've been working really hard to encourage Anna to really honor that human that she is, because it is so special. And when it's available to us, this already special voice is even more special and compelling. And I'm excited to be on that journey with her. It's really rewarding.
Something that is so special about the fact that we're documenting all of these, I mean, we're forced to document them obviously because of the pandemic, but the thing, I mean, recording and filming is very intimidating because, you know, we're constantly trying to sort of achieve some sort of mythical perfection, whatever that is, which is imaginary as far as I'm concerned. But what it is definitely is that it's a snapshot of an artist in time. And so something I thought that was so exciting watching the two of you work, and watching you work specifically, Anna, on Sunday, was we're going to have this snapshot of you coming into your own and kind of trying out these new skills of articulating your artistic vision through not just words, I mean, spoken words, but musical gesture and, you know, singing. And that's really exciting. And, you know, I hope that when you look back on this years from now, you look at that and you remember that that's what this moment was for you. And I mean, it was kind of a special thing to sort of be in the room for on Sunday.
Thank you. That's, you know, I like that way of looking at it, because with being filmed, there felt like an extra layer of scrutiny with everything that I was doing. And I was like, oh, was that 100% what I wanted to do? Oh, was that exactly right? Was that the shape that I really wanted? But one of the things Shannon challenged me to do in our rehearsals is, she said, okay, that's how you did it today. Let's not try to recreate that the next time we do that. Let's try to see, let's say, oh, we've got this information from the last time we did it, and let's use that to then show up however we show up for this piece today, which is both frustrating and exciting. So yes, the recording aspect of it, I felt like gave me an additional level of jitters that you don't necessarily have for a live performance. But Nick, you framed it really well, so I'm going to take that with me and I'm going to hold on to that. This is a snapshot in time of artistry, and a really great moment to document. So thank you for that reframing.
No, I have to admit, I stole it from someone very close to me, and who, when I was making my first album, I was really in my head about it. And he was one of the executive producers, and he said to me, he's like, look, you just got to realize this is a snapshot in time. That's all it is. It's like a Facebook picture, and you'll, you know, like when we scroll back through Facebook and look at those pictures from 2008 or 9, you know, it's like we have the feelings we have about those pictures. Incidentally, I will share with you that I was doing that recently. And at the time I remember thinking, oh, it's not a great picture. And now I'm like, oh my God, I was so skinny and young looking. So you just never know how you're going to feel. And hopefully you'll feel those things, good things.
It's so funny that I had to go back through some old recordings recently for a project I'm working on, and I hate doing that. I think not a lot of us really enjoy doing that because we always bring with us these memories of what it felt like at the time and what didn't quite go right or whatever. And I listen to these recordings, and I'm similar to what you just said, Nick. Why was I so upset? That was great. I looked great. I sounded great. Why in the world did I allow myself to kind of beat myself up or be so in my head about it? So yeah, that snapshot in time is a really important thing. And there's always more going well than we think there is. Always.
We always get a chance to do it again.
It's true. Yep.
Anyway, it was fantastic. So we do have a question from our Facebook friends here. And this is for Anna. How do you see yourself working art song into your repertoire and your career moving forward? And is there an interest in art song recital among younger people? How do we build that up? I think the second part of that is for the entire gallery. But first one, Anna, go for it.
Sure. Will you say it one more time? I'm so sorry. I got distracted by the second part.
Having a really fun time with the autofocus. How do you see yourself working art song into your repertoire as your career moves forward?
Yes, so that's an interesting question. One of the things I'm learning a little bit about art song as a part of my career is that it's a very entrepreneurial part of the career. I think a lot of times it takes this business mindset. It takes pitching ideas to people. It takes using your network of people who know your artistry, perhaps from opera, from oratorio, from concerts, etc. People who know you and know your work, to then say, oh yes, you have this great idea. Here's this project. Yes, I know that you're going to bring all these things to it, so I will let you do this, or I can introduce you to so-and-so who has a concert series that you would be able to present this on. So a lot of business skills involved in that, and that was something I did not know. So I'm hoping to continue on with my business acumen, and I'm really thankful again for this opportunity to work with CAIC because this is expanding my musical network. So one of the things I know, Nick, you and I have talked about is how to pitch projects to presenters, or how to work on getting your first album recorded. So I think I'm still learning of exactly how that will all work, but I know I'm gaining more of those skills in order to make it an ongoing part.
But Anna, you should also not be shy about mentioning that you actually do have some recital opportunities that are coming up. Yeah?
Yes.
So
thank you. Yes,
sure,
absolutely.
you should talk about those.
Sure. So Shannon actually accompanied me for a recent competition that I did and won with the Artist Presentation Society in St. Louis, Missouri. And a part of that part of that award is that I'll be presenting a recital next season with Artist Presentation Society, and so excited about that. It is actually the recital that I auditioned with, and a large part of that was Les Nuits d'été. So it's nice to be able to continue to live with that piece and grow and develop, and then present it in another setting. Additionally, this summer, Shannon and I, with violinist Rebecca Faber, are going to be producing a recital for New Music Chicago, and that is a society here in Chicago that champions new living works by American composers, any composers, but all new music. And that's a really exciting opportunity for me because it marries a bit of my personal experience doing a lot of new opera with this opportunity to present art song. And again, all living composers, very much looking forward to that. So those are two recital opportunities that I'm looking forward to and privileged to have coming up.
Exciting.
Nick, I know you will agree that when you start to develop a reputation as someone who does recitals and who does them well and compellingly, that more opportunities come. So I think it's really exciting that you, Anna, that you already have some things in the works in that way. It's good things to come as well.
Yay, it's working. It's a testament to the whole, if you build it, they will come.
That's right.
That was not the greatest movie, but that adage holds true. So the second part of that question is it's for both of you. Do you see an interest in art song recitals among younger people? And, how do we continue to build that?
Anna, as a young person, would you like to take that? I have some thoughts, but I wonder if as our resident young person, maybe you'd like to get us started.
Well, I think it could be a two-part question. So I'm interested to see how we frame it for by young people as audiences or young people as presenters, because I think, I think there's a couple different ways we could go with it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'd maybe throw in some.
Sure, absolutely. I was thinking young people as performers. That was sort of where my mind immediately went, because I work a lot with young people. And to answer the question, I would point to last 2020, which was 5 years ago? Who knows anymore? But as I was preparing for concerts with the Philadelphia Chamber Music Society with my dear Nick PHAN, who beautifully curated a series of 6 recitals that I was involved with, it was a ton of repertoire, and I knew that I needed some help kind of organizing my preparation, and that I wanted to have a few opportunities to perform some of this repertoire, a lot of which was brand new to me. And so I engaged 5 or 6 wonderful young artists here in Chicago, all kind of Anna's cohort, all around the same age and same experience level. And every single one of them, when I asked them to be involved, and learn brand new stuff in Hungarian, in Polish, in Czech, Spanish, and a lot of things none of us had ever really dealt with before. They jumped at the opportunity, and we did a series of house concerts here, again in my home. And I would say the audiences that attended were also young, whatever that means. And there was just a lot of enthusiasm, and I think that enthusiasm comes from, here's my point of view around it. There is no better way to present yourself as a complete human being through vocal music than through song. It is 100% your voice, perhaps embodying the voice of a poet or a character, but even just the idea of programming a recital brings so much opportunity for personal identity and personal reflection. And I believe that at this moment in time, I don't know how things are going to look on the other side of the pandemic, but I believe that audiences and artists are going to be craving greater degree of intimacy in their artistic experience. And I think that song, there's just no better way to find that. So, and based on my work with young artists at the academic level, undergraduate and graduate, I would say there is a lot of interest in song. Not all of them want to leave song behind when they leave conservatory training, which is what has tended to happen for a lot of them. So I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, for sure.
Shannon, one of the points that I think is really worth reiterating about what you just said is I think there's a lot of opportunity for young artists in song, like you said, to show up with their own voice. But I also think there are possibilities in song to perhaps shake up the way that song has traditionally been presented. An example of this is a project that I've been working on with a dear friend of mine, director John de los Santos, who took 2 very iconic art song cycles, the Mirete and Mahler's Songs of a Wayfarer. And he actually was tasked with a now defunct opera company in New York with pairing these 2 songs and staging them with an orchestra. He had a mezzo-soprano and a baritone who were presenting each of the songs, song cycles. And they said, here you go, let's figure out how to present this. And he created something really beautiful and new from these 2 shall we say, stalwart, like icons, pillars of the art song canon, and found a way to interweave these storylines to create a brand new narrative. And so he was able to come up with the concept that he calls the rose and the knife, both images from the poetry of each of the respective song cycles that tells a brand new story. It interweaves the songs. So you hear first a piece of the Berlioz and then a piece of the Mahler, Berlioz, Mahler. And so it alternates between our two narrators who have an interwoven story. It's really beautiful, it's really impactful, it's really stunning, and I've been thrilled to present that in Minneapolis with Loft Recital previously, and there are future iterations of it coming. So I would say, again, opportunity and possibility. And for young singers like myself, when we find that and we're able to be a part of birth and the evolution of something new like this, using song that we know and love, again, I think it opens a door in a new way. So it's something that's very exciting. So I would second that. There's a lot of excitement around it.
Great. So we've heard a lot about what Anna's learned from this experience, but Shannon, what have you learned from this experience? This is new for us. I mean, we always do try and attempt to give, ensure that fellows have a performance opportunity, but you're normally overseeing it as kind of from above, like from afar, and kind of coaching from the outside. And this time you were in it, and we're featuring it in a different way as part of the regular Leader Lounge series. And I mean, how has that been for you? And what do you feel like you've learned from this experience?
I was reminded, and I hope you'll understand what I think you'll understand what I'm saying when I say this, that there is a tricky balance to achieve when coaching someone with whom you will perform. I think a lot of pianists out in the world who work with singers would say that they try to avoid doing that, actually, that it's a lot easier to kind of prepare on your own, and your singer prepares, and then you come together and you play chamber music, right? You learn from each other in the rehearsal room, and then you perform, and that's wonderful, and you go retreat to your respective corners, and then maybe you come back and do it again another time, and that's great. But the process of coaching and really trying both to imbue the performance with a point of view that you should bring to the experience based on your own experience and your own work, but then also encouraging the artist, the one standing in front facing the audience, to develop their own point of view. It's a tricky balance to achieve, and it's been a while since I've done that. I work a lot with students, and that's a completely different experience, right? And when I'm with a student, we all know what the kind of what the roles there are, and there's a certain expectation of what I'm bringing to the table. And I think Anna has an expectation also, but she's a young artist, and she has her own identity to bring, and I want to be learning from her as well. And so I think it's not that I learned something new, but I was reminded of what a tricky kind of thread that is. And I think we did okay, but it was challenging at points, right? Particularly as we approached giving birth to it, right? Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Anna.
Yes, I mean, I would echo a lot. I didn't mean it to sound like that. But no, I couldn't agree more. It was something, because Shannon and I worked together typically in a coaching environment before. So I would come to Shannon and I would say, help, I've got this aria, I've got this song cycle, I'm trying to prepare, give me your feedback. How can I make this better? And so it was in those situations, you're really a sponge, right? So I feel like in a coaching environment, I am trying to soak in all of the feedback, the professional experience, those little intangibles that Shannon offers with her talented brain, her refined ears, and very skillful fingers. And so then to be presenting a recital, I had to muster up a little bit of a little more backbone and say, I really actually, and that was hard for me. I don't know if that doesn't feel quite right for me. that's not what I'm trying to achieve. And as someone who's an external processor, when I'm trying to come up with exactly what I'm trying to say, sometimes I trip over my words. Sometimes I say something, I'm like, that's not quite right, but it's already landed. And then I have to backtrack and say, no, it's not what I meant. And so I think that was a new situation for me to come. I learned to come to our rehearsals with more fully formed ideas rather than try to come up with them. I'm like, well, what am I trying to do here? And so then Shannon could offer different feedback rather than trying to help me sift through what I'm trying to do as an artist. So there was definitely a new balance in that. And it was so important to learn those. So despite it being, we had a little moments where we were like, what's going on here? I'm so thankful we did that, and so thankful to have done it with Shannon, who's someone who I deeply trust and know that there's this underlying, like, we are colleagues, we are friends. She's someone who's a mentor to me. So there's this deep current of like mutual care and respect for each other as artists and as humans. So that was helpful in ironing out all this beautiful, fun, tricky, sticky stuff.
So one of the things that I've loved just observing this from afar is that for me, when we started this, 11 years ago, in Shannon's other living room, a little further north, one of the inspirations for me was this experience that I was just having at the Marlborough Music Festival, which is a place where you get really seasoned chamber musicians, interacting in chamber situations with younger chamber musicians who are complete wunderkinds. I mean, I think the youngest person my first summer there was a violinist named Ben Beilman, who at the time was 17 and, was just out of high school and about to enter his first year at Curtis, I think. And, it's, you had everybody from him to Mitsuko Uchida and Richard Good, these sort of like stalwart, as famous as you get chamber musicians, and all these people were making music together in chamber groups. And the ethos at Marlborough was, everybody's equal here. And you of course, we call people junior, senior, and there's a sort of like in-between member rank, basically. But in the rehearsal itself, you're all equals, and you better come with your own ideas. And that taught me personally a lot about articulating my ideas. Also, as you were saying, the value of coming in with some ideas that I was not just kind of BSing on the fly, but something that I'd really thought about and had a point of view about that, of course, is malleable and has buoyancy so that it can be shaped. But, there's a foundation to it, and it allows you to have a backbone when you do really believe in something and kind of learn how to communicate around those things, both musically in the moment and in rehearsal, which is such a valuable skill set. And so it's kind of, this is kind of one of the first times we've, as an organization, been able to recreate that aspect of this thing that inspired at least me to be involved with this organization as we got it off the ground a long time ago. And it's so exciting to see that come to fruition in this really special and beautiful way. And I'm so glad to hear that you guys had that kind of experience, because it's a unique thing, and it's really important. You can't build skills in some ways unless you're just sort of thrown into the deep end, and that's kind of what that is. And those of us who are more senior in those positions also learn a lot about keeping ourselves fresh and open and malleable on our own ground.
Yeah, and also, just coming to terms with that, sometimes that little conflict, that little battle is simply part of the artistic process, right? And it's really necessary. And it's not about individuals or people digging in their heels. It's such an intimate process. Like, just the engagement with poetry and how it makes you feel, and how the music, what it's doing for you, and what it did for you 5 years ago, right, versus what it's doing for you now, and really grappling with that, and then sharing a space with someone while you go through that process. Like, and we've all been there, right? I mean, in various situations. And I don't know, on the one hand, I think I'm really glad to have done that for a variety of reasons, because I feel like it reminds you how important it is and how deep it goes, that your desire to express yourself the way you want to express yourself is incredibly important. And when you feel like you're not able to do that, that struggle, and I think we've all been living like that for a little while. We've all felt a little kind of closed off. So, and it's good to again, to share space with someone that you can disagree with and kind of push back and have those moments, and then get up the next day and start over, and it's fine, right? And better even, so.
Of course, because you're probably both in different places about it already.
Exactly.
It's just a nudge.
Oh.
It's interesting. I don't know about how you feel about this, Anna, but when I was going through, sort of operatic young artist training, there wasn't really, they sort of posit it like it's the same kind of thing, but it's really not. Like, there's some sort of like hierarchy in the room that's very apparent at all times, and that feels really, in some ways when you're young, unfair, and in other ways just, it doesn't teach you those skills in terms of like advocating for your own ideas. And so, I mean, that's another unique thing about art song. And I don't know if you feel similarly, but that's just something that I've always noticed. And I think it's extra apparent in this moment when the world is having this reckoning and like everybody is able to speak out on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, Nick, and that's a really good point. There is this idea that currently exists, but I think is evolving in young artist training of like, and this is how you do this, and no, that cadenza isn't right. And so the conductor says, oh, and the conductor says, no, that's not the right tempo. And oh, no, breathe here. And again, as a young artist, you want to show up as a sponge. You want to absorb. But sometimes all those voices coming at you dilutes that like authentic voice that's at the core of who you are as a musician and as a person that really has something to say. So you don't flex that muscle. And so then it feels a little uncomfortable when you do start flexing that muscle and realizing that, oh, I have knowledge, I have information, I've done the work to back up what I'm bringing to the table as an artist, rather than, but it's a tricky process. And again, what's this idea of like a butterfly being in its shell, and you kind of have to break out of the cocoon a little bit, and it's an active process. It's not something that just happens passively. So yeah, I learned, again, I can't express to you how much I learned during this process and how thankful I am to have been able to go through it. So, because you don't learn it anywhere else.
Well, we're grateful that you have come to us and, gone on this journey with us. It's fantastic. I'm going to just one more time throw out a shout to everybody on Facebook. If you have any questions, please shoot them in the comments. Oh, we have one from Frank. Anna, what's next after your collaboration with us, CAIC, and what repertoire are you looking forward to tackling?
Ooh, so as I mentioned, up next, oh, actually, I'll give a little plug. Shannon and I also recorded a piece that's going to be featured on Loft Recital's upcoming recital called The Pulitzers, and it's an all female Pulitzer Prize winning composers repertoire. We did a piece by Jennifer Higdon that was really wonderful. And so that'll be featured coming up this weekend on April 24th. You can stream that. In terms of what's coming up next for me, Shannon and I are doing the New Music Chicago recital this summer in August. We also, Shannon and I are throwing around some ideas and evolving a project that we're both working on, and maybe I'll let Shannon talk a little bit about that in a minute. Additionally, I'm going to be back at Lincoln Center Theater this coming December and through March. We're going to actually put on its feet the world premiere that I was a part of before everything shut down in March. Intimate Apparel by Ricky Ian Gordon and Lynn Nottage. I'm really excited to present that piece with Lincoln Center Theater. Personally, I have a laundry list of repertoire that I am so excited to dive into someday. The list is like my book list. It keeps getting longer and longer, and I don't know how I'm ever going to get through it, but I have a bit of an inkling to do some Korngold. I really would love to dive into that, some Marx. Something about German romantic music is calling my name now. So we'll see where that takes me. I have a couple of dream programs hidden in the back of my closet that I also would love to pull out and start playing with, but I feel like the world is my oyster now.
Great. So as we wrap up, we've kind of touched on these two questions a little bit, but I'm sorry, Shannon, you're the guest today, so you have to answer. But I'm sort of ending these lately with the same two questions. And we've touched on this a little bit, but I don't think it hurts to underline with the giant hot pink highlighter the answers to these questions for you. So the first one is, what do you see as the future of the vocal recital? And the second one is, why do you think song is important? So whoever would like to go first. Don't all jump at once.
Sorry. You know, I can't predict the future, but I can tell you some things that I've been excited to see and would like to see more of. And that's the potential for song as a dramatic vehicle, right? Moving beyond the stand and the crook of the piano and deliver beautiful poetry. I love that. I love it. But I also think that there is certain repertoire that at times lends itself really well to interdisciplinary work. Remember, we did the Schoenberg Book of the Hanging Gardens on one of our previous festivals with a dancer. And maybe that isn't to everyone's taste, but it's an interesting way to experience song. This semester in my academic position, because of COVID and not being able to work together in large groups, my opera students for the undergraduate opera, each one has been assigned what I've called a dramatic song cycle of sorts. So a poetry that has a narrative arc. And we're learning how to present song in a compelling way with some sort of backdrop and using this little screen as a way to engage an audience. And I think that is exciting. I don't think that that technology is going anywhere. The screen is not going anywhere after COVID ends. And finding ways to engage in that way, I think is really exciting. And as I said earlier, I see song as just the perfect vehicle for authenticity and identity, expressions of identity, and a level of intimacy that I think people really want. And so I see us headed more in that direction.
Anna?
Will you say the phrasing of the first question one more time? Because I feel like there was something that jumped out at me the way you had phrased it.
What do you see as the future of the vocal recital?
Okay. I would echo Shannon's sentiment. From opera companies to any presenting organization, the screen is not going away. It's now a new way to reach new audiences and reach audiences that are not geographically locked to the area of the presenting organization. So there's a lot of opportunity in that. The future of the song recital. I also think there is going to be this, I don't want to say return to basics, but when we were recording in Shannon's space and when we've presented salon concerts or home recitals there's something special that happens in that space, in that intimacy, in that proximity with an audience that I don't think can be replicated on the screen. So it's kind of a yes and situation, right? It's like, yes, there's going to be new things that we're going to explore through the song recital, but I think and I think there's also a return back to basics that's going to breathe a different kind of life. I don't want to say life because there's no death, but of song, but a different kind of, I don't know, sparkle into that intimate song recital setting. I think there's going to be that thing where you like lean forward in your seat and you're like holding your breath in moments that are just so hushed and special, and blown back in your seat by moments that just really knock your socks off and are so big. So yes, future in a different way, and future in a way that takes us back to our roots. And the second question was,
Second question is, why do you think song is important?
Song is important in a different way than opera is important, but in the same way that opera is important, because there's a story there. There's a reason that those words were so moving that a composer took them and set them to music in the special way that they did. And as we can see by certain composers or certain poems that are set by multiple composers, people have a different reaction to those words. And so it colors a little bit differently for each composer. And what makes that word do this in this song, but this composer said it this way? What are, so storytelling, the words. And the thing that I love is that it tells it in a micro way. In opera, it's all, I mean, to overgeneralize, it's about the big, it's about the scale. And I think in song, it requires a different skill set, and it requires you to tell a different kind of story at a different level that uses different vocal colors, different techniques, but is equally as vulnerable and raw and real and present and immediate. It's just so special. I can't articulate it enough. And I think I really rediscovered all the little things that it is during this recital process. It's not, I don't feel like I could just, distill it down to one thing. But if I had to, it would be storytelling. But storytelling is such a big term. So I just love it. It lights me up.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. It's very clear in the way you perform it, both of you. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on Facebook. As always, if you would like to support our 2021 season broadcast, you can do so with the tax-deductible donation at our website. The link, if you scroll up in the comments, is right there, and I'll put it in right after we log off. As we're only online this season and not selling tickets, your donations and support for this programming are more important than ever. So, if you can and are able, please do so. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We will be off next week with Heard Over the Piano. We will be back in May for more episodes with Heard Over the Piano. And please be sure to tune in to the Spring Leader Lounge featuring these two exceptional artists here next Friday with songs by Cécile Chaminade, Pauline Viardot, Hector Berlioz, and Kurt Weill. And the premiere broadcast is April 30th, next Friday at 7 p.m. Central at our Facebook Live channel, which is right here, or our YouTube channel, which you can find on YouTube through our website, and also at the broadcast page of our website. So please tune in at one of those three places next Friday, 7 p.m. Central. And if you can't tune in next Friday, it will be available for on-demand streaming all the way through the end of May 2nd. So we will see you in a couple of weeks. And Shannon, Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. And bravi again on your beautiful recital that is going to air next week. So Facebook, we'll see you soon. And yeah, bye for now.